Good morning. We'll get that sorted out one of these days. I think in every generation there are children's TV shows. When I was a kid, I remember really young watching Sesame Street. I loved Sesame Street. Um, a little bit older, we were watching Fraggle Rock. Does anybody remember Fraggle Rock? Down in Fraggle Rock. But then there's a generation after Fraggle Rock. There was Barney. Anybody remember Barney? Barney was not my favorite. But they keep doing this. There were for a while was Bananas in Pajamas. Remember that? Bananas in Pajamas are coming down the stairs. Yeah? Yeah. Then there was Blue's Clues and Teletubbies. Now there's CoComelon. Does anybody know what CoComelon is? Yeah, I don't. If you put CoComelon on, I wouldn't know what it was. But there's one show that I was super confused about because mostly the Ramirez children would talk about it. They're like, Uncle Sam, have you seen? Do you know who this is? I'm like, no, I have no idea what show that's from. And they're like, it's Paw Patrol. And so here's the challenge with that, though, is that your ears play funny tricks on you. They kept showing me this picture of an animated dog, and I couldn't make sense of why this show was called Paw Patrol, because I'd never seen the show written out. I'd only heard it. I'm like, I don't understand. Are these troll dogs? I'm like, and who's the Paw Patrol? I couldn't figure it out. And I think sometimes that's when we encounter words, there are two ways to encounter words. You can encounter them in books. I'm somebody that when I read a book and I see a word or a name, that I don't know how to pronounce, it bothers me. It'll get stuck in my head, and I'll repeat it over and over and over again, and it won't go away until I figure out how to actually pronounce it. If there's a word that I don't know what it means when I'm reading, I have to look it up. I can't go on. And so when I'm reading a physical book, there aren't the same features on a physical book as there are on a Kindle. On a Kindle, if you don't know what a word is or don't know how to pronounce it, you just tap the word and a little pop-up opens up and it tells you what the meaning of the word is. And if you know how to read a pronunciation key, it'll tell you how to pronounce the word. I found out that paperback books don't work that way. I don't know if you knew that. They don't have that feature. I don't know if I just forgot to charge it or the battery was dead or what, or maybe it just wasn't connected to Wi-Fi. That's what it was. But paperback books don't have that feature. And there's a thing where, when you don't, some people are okay with knowing, reading a book and not knowing how to pronounce it. Pronounce words or names or whatever. My sister-in-law, when she was reading the Left Behind series, she couldn't. One of the characters' name is Chloe, and she couldn't figure out what that name was. She'd never seen it on paper, and so she just made up a name that she replaced that name with every time she read that name. And one time, her and I were talking about this book and talking about the characters, and she kept referring to this character that's not in the book the version of the book that I had read. She kept talking about this character. I'm like, that sounds a lot like Chloe, but she keeps calling this character another name. And so I asked her, she's like, well, I didn't know how to pronounce the name, and so that's just her name in my mind now. There's something that happens when your brain doesn't know what word to use. I think similar things can happen when we talk about words that have a range. When we're talking about experiences that have a range, right? Like my kids, and this is one of the things that they say that gets under my skin. That, like if they have a teacher that they don't like, they're like, I hate that teacher. And it just makes me like, ugh. Like, because that's like that's all the way on the other end of the spectrum. Like there's no more room to go after that. What happens when you find out that that's not the worst teacher? What happens when you find out that that teacher just doesn't like you? Or what happens when you get to college and you find out that that teacher was actually an easy teacher? You don't have any more room to talk about things. And the same thing goes for the word love. The word love. And it's interesting because in English, we have one word, right? We have love. And you can love pizza, which love pizza. Went to Rosalie's the other day, and they had their slice of the day was the squares, which was the thick sliced pizza, which is not my favorite, but I still love it. It had bacon and roasted red peppers and cheese. It was good. We can love pizza. And we can love our friends. I have friends. You know, part of the vision at Reveille is making friends, finding family, and releasing dreams. But that making friends part, like there's something that happens with love where you invest in a relationship long enough, and it translates. People begin to go from friendship, like they're just my friend, that they really become family. And the thing that makes that transition, the thing that makes that shift is love. I think if we're not careful, we start using language all loosey-goosey, and there comes a point where maybe we're missing some of the things that are meant by what's being said. We've been in this sermon series, Crazy Stupid Love. And last week we talked about just how much God loves us. And one of the things that is an interesting thing when we talk about our own experience, and when we talk about the way we encounter, like our own life experience helps us to define the way what words mean, like what they mean to us. When we sang the song earlier, just a little bit ago, about the Father. You're a good Father, right? But not all of us had a good father. Some of us didn't even have just a good father. Some of us didn't even have it would be hard to say we had a father. And so as a result, like when we hear that language, there becomes a disparity between what we hear and what is meant, right? Have you ever been in a conversation and you're trying to express something, and what you're trying to express is just completely missing the point? Like the person that you're talking to does not understand what you're saying at all. It's talking to children. But it happens often. It's not just children. It's people who they're people that you're on the same wavelength with, like your spouse or your best friend or your coworkers, and you're just talking, and it's like you're talking past one another. And it's not a lack of understanding the actual words that are being said. There's a disconnect. We're going to look at a story in the book of Luke today. And let's set the scene a little bit before we jump into the story. I think it's important to set the scene because, especially when a story is very familiar. When a story is very familiar, we sometimes hear it, but we don't hear it. And so, to set the scene, we're going to be in Luke chapter 15. And at the beginning, it says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus." So all of these people who they don't really belong. They're not supposed to be there. Like, and if you doubt that, go on to verse 2, and it says, "But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered." That's a really great word. The Pharisees and the teacher of the law muttered. They're like, those guys aren't supposed to be here. Those guys aren't supposed to. We gotta cut this out. And Jesus has this way of kind of knowing our hearts, knowing what's going on inside of us, and he sees that, and he sees these Pharisees, and he's struck by that. And so Jesus begins to teach. Keep in mind, the audience that he's teaching to is a group of Pharisees and a group of tax collectors and sinners. So, church. That was a joke. He's teaching this group of people, and it's a broad spectrum of people that he's teaching. And it's what he wants to do is he wants everybody in the room to hear the message. He wants everybody in the room to hear what he's trying to say. He wants everybody in the room to not miss it. He starts off by telling a story about a lost sheep and a shepherd that goes and looks for that lost sheep. A shepherd that leaves the 99 to go look for the one sheep. He finds the sheep, and when he finds the sheep, he celebrates. He celebrates. And the celebration is both for the individual sheep and also for the flock. The celebration, the excitement is not just for the individual sheep that was found, it's for the flock, because the flock is whole again. And then he tells a story about a lost coin, a woman who loses a coin, and she tears the house apart, flips couch cushions over, pulls the couch away from the wall. You know, when you pull the couch away from the wall and there's all those dust bunnies back there, maybe that doesn't happen at your house. I think it happens at your house and you're lying. She pulls the refrigerator out. She dumps out the junk drawer. She looks everywhere for this coin. I don't know if she was just that much short on paying her rent or what was the motivation, but like she is desperate to find this coin. And when she finds the coin, she throws a party. She invites the neighbors over to celebrate that she found this coin. And the final story that Jesus tells is a story that is often referred to as the prodigal son. It's often referred to as the story it's often understood as a story about a son who wanders off, the son that gets lost. But more than that, it's a story about a father. And I think in this room that Jesus is talking to, there are two different perspectives on what a father would do, what a father does, what the motivation behind the Father, behind God is, what God's motivation is, what God wants to accomplish. You know, the Pharisees are sitting here thinking, well, God wants to make sure that all of the rules are followed. God wants to make sure all of the boxes are checked, and we are doing that. And then the other group of people who are there, the tax collectors and sinners, which really honestly, if we're really honest about it, we could just describe the entire group as tax collectors and sinners. Because that's really what we all are. Tax collectors and sinners. But this group of people is just happy to be invited. They're just happy. There's something about what Jesus has been saying. There's just something about what Jesus has been doing that has caught their attention. And that's a significant thing. So Jesus tells this story. We're going to look at it starting in verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to the father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." You have to understand that they didn't have retirement accounts like we do today. Like today, if you go to your parents and say, "Hey, I would like my share of the inheritance," I mean, there would be a penalty that they would have to pay by liquidating those funds out of a mutual fund account or an IRA before it's time, and then there'd be a tax penalty as well because all of the stuff. But like they could take a part of it, is what I'm saying. They could take a part of it and give it to you. But that's not how it worked back then. Back then, the way the wealth was in the land, in the property, in the things that they owned. And for this father to liquidate the assets so that he could give his son a portion of this, he would have had to sell property. It's not a small thing. This request is not a small thing. And moreover, it's kind of offensive. It's not like the son was saying, "Hey, Dad, I love you. I want to invest in a new business, a startup, a thing that I want to do. Is there any way that you could help me invest in my future?" It's not what's being said. It says, "Father, give me my share of the estate." It's almost like the son is saying, "Hey, Dad, I just want what you have to offer me. The relationship, this connection, this bond that we have, less important than what I can get out of it." So he divided the property between them. Like that short little sentence right there. I think we see all of the words that are in that sentence, but we miss how impactful it is. He said, so he divided the property between them. So each of the sons got their share. He divided the property between them. Each son got their share. But he did that. Why did he do that? Why was he willing to do that? Why was he willing to make that sacrifice? I mean, when you divide it, when you sell it, the ability for it to appreciate in value goes down. You're losing opportunity. Why was he willing to do that? It's because he loved his son. And even though his son in that moment was valuing something else more than relationship, his father was willing to invest at where his son was at that moment. I think we missed that point. Like, why would the father do that? Why would the father make this big risk? Why would, and keep in mind, this is a different culture on top of that. Like, this is an honor-shame culture. And this scenario is something that would have, he couldn't have kept this secret. Like, everybody in the neighborhood would know. The real estate sign would go out in the front yard, and people would say, "Are you selling your property? What's going on? Are you moving? What's happening?" The neighbors, you know how that works. Things go up, and property values and the cars start showing up for the open house and all of that. He couldn't have kept it secret. He couldn't have kept this thing that would have brought this encounter. Like, the thing that is most tied to honor and shame is what happens in your household. And this thing where his son basically says, "I would rather you be dead to me." You have to see the father's heart in this. And the father's heart is for relationship. He values the relationship with his son more than he values his entire estate and his wealth. More than he values his reputation, more than he values any of the assets that he has. He values the relationship with his son. And we know that the son wasn't interested in starting a new business because of what happens next. He says, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had and set off for a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he's actually taken everything that his father has given him, and thrown it away. He's wasted it all. He's wasted every penny. And then on top of that, now he's far away. He's far away, and now things in the economy is going down. Things are getting really difficult, and he began to be in need. Verse 15 says, he's trying to solve his own problems, right? Which I think is what a lot of us would do in this situation. We begin to see that we've messed up. We begin to see we've made a mess of things, and so he hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. So he's in this desperate place. He's in this difficult situation that he got himself in. He's in this place that he got himself in that he can't solve the problem himself. He's trying, but the resources aren't there. Verse 17. He came to his senses. And he said, how many of my father's, again, younger son still not thinking about the father's own feelings or emotions or contributions or any of that. He's just thinking about making sure his needs are being taken care of. And so he's trying to figure out how to get back into the income stream. He says, he came to his senses, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him. He creates this speech. He writes it down and he practices it in the mirror. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. He repeats it over and over and over and over again. And he's prepared, like he's prepared for the entire demonstration that needs to happen for him to make this connection, to get back into to the funding stream. So he got up and went to his father. And I think that this next phrase, this next line, it really indicates better than almost anything what the heart of the Father is. The heart of the Father. And sometimes we play our, like I said earlier, we put our own circumstances, we put our own experiences into the story, and we're like, what are fathers like? What are circumstances? How does this really work? But Jesus is pretty clear. He says, the Father, but while the Son was still a long way off, the Son was still a long way off. Do you know what that tells me? Well, what that tells me is that the Father never stopped looking, never stopped waiting, never stopped hoping, never stopped loving, never stopped caring, never stopped looking off into the distance, waiting for that day when the Son would come back. The Father never stopped. The Father saw him. Filled with compassion, he ran to his Son. There's this scene in the TV show Ted Lasso. I don't know if you were familiar with the TV show Ted Lasso. It will make you cry. When you watch the previews, it looks like it's about soccer, but it's not really about soccer. But there's a scene where Ted, who's the coach of this soccer team in England, he's coaching in England, and his kid and his wife are back in the United States. And there's a point in the first season where the wife and the son show up. And they're there to visit him, and it's like it's at this culminating point in the experience of what's happening with the team and where they're at. And Ted they're practicing out on the field. They're practicing out on the field, and Ted looks up and he sees his son across the field. He cancels practice and he just starts sprinting across the field. One of the other players from that is standing, one of the other coaches, looks at Ted running and he's like, "That's a lot further than he thinks it is." And Ted runs all the way across and he picks up his son and he spins him around. This is what I imagine. Like the father seeing his son off in the distance, this far off in the distance encounter, this far off in the distance moment where the father sees his son. Like when you can see that it's your son and and you just start running. And it's too far to run. You just keep running. You hike up your robes and you run. You throw off any sense of self-preservation or dignity. Like you don't care about any of that. You just run. And that's what this father does. He threw his arms around him and kisses him. And so the son decides to start his speech. He says, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." And the father says, "You're right." No. It's almost like the father doesn't even hear this speech. It's almost like the father just completely skips over this encounter. He's so excited that his son has returned. He's so excited that his son has made his way back home. He stops everything, cancels practice. But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him." Just so we're clear, that's his robe. The best robe is the father's robe. Put a ring on his finger. That's his father's ring. And the best sandals on his feet. Those are his father's sandals. This is nothing less than the father throwing the door open and not only welcoming his son, not only inviting his son back in, but reinstating him. It's recalculating the will. This is not a small thing. This is a significant, this is at great cost, is the father welcoming the son back in. And he says, "Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. The father spares no expense. The father spares no expense to express. And this isn't like a new thing. Like he's been doing this all along. All the way through the process, he's been sparing no expense to express and show how deeply he loves his son. And that's what he does. We have a tendency to hear the stories through our own lens. And I said earlier that Jesus wanted everybody in the room to hear. And the father's, like at this point, the father's seems to have been spending a lot of his emotional attention and energy on the younger son, right? And the person who notices that is the older son. It does not go unnoticed by him. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. And the brother's not incredibly concerned about the wholeness of the flock. The brother's not incredibly concerned about the wholeness of this family, the restoration of this family. The father's not, this older brother's not concerned about the same things that the father is. The father wants both of his sons. He wants the relationships to be intact. He wants both of his sons to know how much he loves them. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So the father went out. Have you ever hosted a party? Like, had people over at your house and like been called away in the middle of that party, and everybody's like, where? It kind of feels weird, right? Or maybe you've been at that party where like it's going on and it's a little bit late, and I have a good friend. I'm not going to say his name, but his initials are Zach Wilkinson. And Zach loves to get everybody together and get everybody together at a party, and he loves all of his friends to be in one place. But he also turns into a pumpkin at 9 o'clock. And so, like, the party will be going, the music, the conversation, the laughter, all of the things that are part of a party are there. And then we turn around and the party's at his house. And Zach's gone. Disappears. And that's what happens at this party. The father disappears. The music is going, the food and the drink and all of that is happening, and the father steps out of the party. Not because he's turned into a pumpkin, but because, once again, he's pursuing one of his sons. He's pursuing the older son. He steps out, faces that, again, takes on shame for his son. He goes out and pleads with him, and he says, so the father went out and pleaded with him, but the older son answered him, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, you can just hear the venom in his voice. This son of yours, not my brother, this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because your brother, this brother of yours, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. A few years ago, there was a worship song that came out. And it was, it's one of those things that, people like to hate things. It's one of their favorite things to do. They love to argue about things, and this song became really popular. Um, but there was this line in this song, and the line in the song said, "When heaven meets earth like a sloppy wet kiss." And some people, when they heard that, they're like, ew. Some of you, when I said sloppy wet kiss, you thought, ew. We hear these things in our own experience. We sang that song this morning. How he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. Oh, how he loves us. It's not the pizza kind of love, guys. It's not the my favorite football team kind of love. Oh, how he loves us. He's willing to spare no expense to express this love. He's willing to put himself to shame. He's willing to do whatever it takes for this kind of love. And when I first heard that song, if I can be really honest, I was a little put off by those words. Sloppy wet kiss. When I first heard the song, I was a young dad. And I was a little put off by it. But then I realized it's not God that's going around giving sloppy wet kisses. It's the 2-year-old that has fallen on his head and is crying and is hurt and is broken and desperately needs comfort and the arms of his father or mother around them. That kid gives a sloppy wet kiss. That kid puts his snotty, sweaty, wet, spit face on your face, whether you like it or not. This expression in this song is not, and the sermon's not about the song, but I think sometimes we hear the things and we hear it through our own experience. We hear Father, and we're like, I don't know what kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. And so some people change the words of the song to unforeseen kiss. I don't know that that's better. I don't know who likes surprise kisses from people that when you weren't expecting it, but Bing does. Feel free to give Bing all of the surprise, unforeseen kisses that you want, but not Bethany. Sloppy wet. The reality is that I can't think of this encounter with the Father and the Son. This son was prepared to be a hired hand. And what we don't know at the end of this story, what we don't know is the condition of the hearts of either of the sons. We don't know whether, like, the younger son discontinued his desire for his father's possessions more than his father's relationship. We don't know whether or not the older son went into the party. We don't know. The only thing that we do know, the one thing that we know without any doubt, is the heart of the Father. It's crazy. It's reckless. It's costly. The heart of the Father, while he was still a long way off. How desperately he loves both of his sons. Would you come back up, Tony? It's funny, I had been meaning to text Tony all week and asking him to play this song. I'm not joking. I actually had formulated in my mind that since I hadn't asked Tony, what I would do was I would set up my guitar on the stage and I would play this song for you. And then during practice, as we're all getting ready, and the first song that he starts playing is this song. The thing in this series that we want you to know, the thing that I believe God is trying to get through to you, the thing that God wants you to know more than anything else, that He's willing to spare no expense so that you know. He's willing to do whatever it takes so that you know. He's willing to do whatever it takes so that you know that you have a place at the table. A ring and a robe and a place at the table. Whatever it takes. The thing He wants you to know more than anything is how desperately He loves you. And hey, if you have a bad experience of what it looks like for a father to love you, that's not what He's talking about. Whatever it is, whatever the need that you have, whatever the place that you're at, whatever experience that you've experienced, God wants you to know today that He loves you. He's unwilling for you to not to be a part of the family. He is willing to shift the entire resources of the family so that you can be a part of it. I don't know about you, but for me, the words "I love you" are important. But the actions of "I love you" are more important. The ways that God shows up for us, the way that God answers our prayer, the way that God spares no expense for me to be a part, for you to be a part, for us to be a part of the family. You, here today. And the thing that triggered all of this, the thing that created the opportunity for this story, was one group of people feeling like they didn't belong. One of the most powerful stories in all of the Gospels is told as a response so that both people, that everyone in the room would know that the Father's love is for them. Do you know that? Do you know that the Father's love is for you? It's for you. It's for you. I'm going to invite Tony to sing this song. And I want you to think about the words of this song with the understanding that we're the one who brings the sloppy. We're the one who brings the mess. We're the one who brings the ugly. We're the one who brings all of the baggage. And what does the Father do in response to that? He's jealous for you. Love's like a hurricane. You. Specifically you. Wherever you're at. Whatever you have going on in your life. No matter how much you've messed up. You.
He is jealous for me. Love's like a hurricane.